Hey folks, I'm Sam Lewis here at NA Studios. Thanks for checking the video out. Today I want to show you a few techniques for getting the most out of programmed drums, getting them to sound the most human that you possibly can. Now there's a few different elements involved in this. I'm going to take you through how you can get the most out of your electronic drums. Let's take a look. Now the first thing I want to say is the best way to get a human sound out of electronic drums in general is to alter the MIDI information that you have. You can do that by going into your MIDI editor, selecting your notes, and each DAW will do this in kind of a different way. But Logic, you go up to Functions and MIDI Transform. You can humanize the notes, which is going to move them slightly left, slightly right, because a normal drummer, a human drummer, won't always play everything exactly on the beat. Or you can go up to Random Velocity and you can change the velocities of notes so that everything's not all the same note, everything's not kind of just all hard or all soft, kind of in the way that a human drummer would play them. But I'm going to assume for now that you're aware of these processes and that you know how to kind of achieve this using MIDI. We're going to take a look at some bus processing and how we can create the sound of a drummer in a room, because it's all very well going through MIDI, humanizing, transforming stuff, but it still sounds like an electronic drum kit. It still doesn't sound like you're in the room with the drummer, which is kind of what we're looking to achieve. So let's take a look at what I've done. Let's hear a before and an after, and then we'll discuss it. So quite a big difference there, and you'll notice that when it goes to the version with the room sound on it, it almost sounds like it's too much, but this is because it's coming from such a sterile version, the original version, which just sounded too clinical. It sounded too kind of robotic, and let's take a look exactly how I've done this. So firstly, I've actually bounced down all these individual elements of the kit, the kick, the snare, the toms, floor toms, etc. Onto their own tracks. You can do this within your own instrument. You can just output them to their own channel on your mixer if you like. This is kind of the way that I prefer to do it, so I can actually see the waveforms. And we've got three different buses going on here. We've got drum verb, drum room, and drum smash. Now each of these is going to give us something different in the mix. And I want to play each of them individually now so you can see exactly what each of them is going to be adding. So three very, very different sounds there, three different kind of elements that we can add to a mix that are going to combine together to create something that sounds much more realistic. So first of all, let's take a look at this drum verb. So the drum verb is maybe the more kind of clinical one of all of them. There's not a whole lot going on here. It's just a reverb. But a couple of extra things that I'm doing here. I'm actually on the details, which is kind of the EQ. I'm taking off some of the super highs and I'm adding in some of the high mids, quite a considerable amount, if you see, around 9 dB. And this is just adding some overall brightness, some overall kind of air to the sound. So if I play you before and after, you'll see exactly what it's adding. And the reason that I want to add this is because it adds some of that real bright top-end sparkly stuff that we kind of need. We don't necessarily know that we need it, but without it, it would sound a little bit dull and lifeless. And it's useful when we're trying to achieve this more kind of human element to it. Just adds that element of kind of slap and top end sparkle, which is going to be really useful. So I'm not going to delve too much into this drum verb because there's not too much going on here, but suffice to say, it's just a smooth space kind of thing. It's in the Logic stock chroma verb, and the smooth space to me is kind of does what it says on the tin. It's like a large space, but it's nothing too aggressive, nothing too bassy, nothing too toppy, and we can add a little bit more top there for ourselves. So the drum room, this is where things start to get a little more complex. I've gone for a chamber sound, and I just really want the overall actual sound of a drum in a large room. And this is exactly what I'm getting here from the chamber sound, but with one keen difference. So we can just see that this is basically a stock sound. I've not changed anything on here at all, nothing on the EQ, nothing at all has been changed. But before that reverb, I've got barrier. And barrier is a way of kind of burying stuff in the mix, and it means that the transient information is not quite as pronounced, and it's just going to kind of squash stuff in a really nice way. I'm going to play it before and after that barrier is on, and you'll see that what it's doing is it's just squashing stuff down. And the reason for this is that I don't want any transient stuff, anything too kind of spiky coming through into the room reverb. So the reason for this is because reverbs are not exactly linear beasts, okay? Anything that is really loud is going to get reverberated loads more than stuff that is quiet. So if you have a really high, loud drum transient, a really high peak, that's going to give you loads and loads of reverb. And I don't want there to be too much difference between the high level stuff and the low level stuff. So that's why I've got Barrier on there. Let's take a listen to it before Barrier and then after, and you'll see how it's really molding that. It's really squashing the sound. So it's bringing up that low level stuff. And to me, that's what I want in like a room reverb kind of sound. You'll see that a lot of people will compress room mics and compress room reverbs. And this is exactly why they want that. They want that overall undertone of the drum kit coming through. And to me, I like to do this before it goes into the reverb for the reasons I mentioned, so it's not getting that like loud stuff reverberating way more. And I like to maybe compress afterwards a little bit if it needs it, but in this case, Barrier is doing exactly what I need to do before it's even got into the reverb, and that's just perfect for me. So these two together, you're going to get all the top end from drum verb, and then drum room is going to give you the low end stuff. It's going to give you the overall kind of meat of the sound. So just with those two reverbs, you've got two ends of the spectrum. You've got all the low end kind of meat, the real texture, the real overtones of the drum kit, and then you've got kind of the top end stuff, the real digital reverb, sort of sparkly stuff. So take a listen to those two, just the reverbs, not the original drums, and just hear what happens when I take the room out, and you'll just be left with the drum verb, and you'll hear how they complement each other really nicely. So those two together are doing a great job of creating some kind of realism for the sound. But this third one, the drum smash, is a little kind of secret sauce that I love to use, and it really adds so much aggression and just a load of realism, and most importantly, some sustain to the drums. And there's a little bit of more complex stuff going on here. Let's check it out. So first and foremost, in drum smash, I've got it going through a transient shaper, and that's basically taking off all of the attack, taking off all of the peaks in the same way as Barrier was kind of doing, but it's bringing up some of the sustain as well. So it's just altering the overall peak information and the transient information of those drums, so that when it comes into the next step, it's kind of prepared and it's not too smashy, because we're going to be creating some saturation here. And as we well know, saturation again is not a linear thing. Anything too loud, anything too spiky is going to distort a little too much. So just for a bit of extra body, again, I'm going into Barrier. I can't say enough about this plugin. It's great for just molding just low-level stuff and just bringing it up and really squashing the sound nicely. Just tucking something in the mix on kind of subtle settings, but on the more aggressive settings, it just buries it, and it's great. And then the plugin doing most of the heavy lifting is the Kit Plugins BBN73. So the channel strip emulation. I'm not actually using any of the EQ here. I'm just using the saturation. I'm just bringing it up loads. Auto gain is on, so as I bring up the gain, the output volume comes down. Just take a listen to this with and without, and you'll see exactly what it's adding. So you may remember I did a video on this about how you can add sustain to drums using this kind of plugin. You can check it out just above here. Well, this is the same kind of thing. This is adding some sustain to the drums, and it's really adding some length, and it's adding some overall grit and dirtiness, which is just going to tuck in underneath our actual drum mix just for some realism, just for some real actual human elements to it. So we've got the reverbs, which are acting as kind of the room, and then this saturation is acting as kind of the drummer. So we've got those two elements which are working nicely together. I just want to play you the drum mix with and without this saturation plugin, and you'll see how much grit, how much dirt it's actually adding and how it's helping. So that one alone really makes it sound like we're in a room with the drummer. Let's bring these all on individually and we'll just go one by one, bring them in, take them out again, and you're really going to hear what each of these is adding. So just to clarify, the drum verb is adding some of that nice top end kind of attack and sparkle. The drum room is adding some of that overall warmth and that overall low level come up stuff. And then the drum smash is adding the aggression, the kind of distortion, saturation, adding some of that drummer realism to it. So first of all, let's go for just the drums, and then I'm going to bring these in individually and you're going to hear that drum sound all come together. Once all those three are in, it adds such a great amount of life to the drums, and without it, you're really going to miss that human element. Take a listen. Again, you go from such a sterile sounding kit which just sounds flat. It sounds like there's nothing surrounding it. It sounds like it was recorded in a really dead space. And I guess in essence it was, because we haven't actually added these room sounds, these reverbs which are making it sound complete, making it sound whole. I hope you can take some of these techniques and apply them to your productions. Now, you may not be creating a track that sounds exactly like this, but these techniques where you have a reverb, a room, and then like a smash are really kind of fundamental to creating that realism in any kind of music. You can use it for any kind of genre where you just need a little bit of extra air around the drums, a little bit of extra something to make it sound like a drummer in the room. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Take care.